starting later. Hello everybody. Thanks very much indeed for coming. I'm so pleased that we've got some people who are excited about assessment and feedback in Canvas. So obviously you're the people, you are the only ones. Very pleased that Rob's been able to join with me today to give this presentation. Robbie is probably our resident expert on assessment in Canvas at the university, so it's great that he can be with us today. If you don't know Rob used to work here in my team, and he now works for Trevor Batchelor's e-learning team in CLAD. And he's been working a lot with their team in order to kind of define a lot about how we're going to be using Canvas, and particularly around designing training courses for when it's implemented. So what Rob will do now is sort of give you a very brief introduction to kind of that training course structure, but then also give more detailed insights into how to set up assessments and how they're going to work with Canvas. I did allude to them in a previous talk, but now we're going to go into a bit more depth now and just focus more specifically on how it works. Rob will sort of show how an assessment can be set up and all the features around it. I will then sort of be a dummy student and show how it will work from a student perspective, and then Rob will come in at the end and show how it can be assessed, feedback can be given, and the grades compiled in there. So hopefully we'll give you a full idea of what the full transect is from right to the start, right to the end of the assessment process.
Sounds like we know what we're talking about, doesn't it?
Yeah. We think we'll do that in about half an hour, 40 minutes.
I'm hoping people are going to be able to hear me on this. We'll see. Right. Just before I start and go into too much detail, I just thought you might like to know what Central Team's got planned regarding our training courses. Hence the funky little graphic that I've just put up there. For some reason it's appeared twice, never mind. And basically what it is that we've got 5 core courses. The primary one is the introduction to Canvas, which is like an overview to all the Canvas tools, how it can be used. It's basically a facility for you to basically touch your toe into Canvas and get the basics. And then from off that, we've got 4 other courses that we're actually running. One is dedicated on the online communication tools, whether it be synchronous or asynchronous communications. One is based on the actual quiz tools and how you might import quizzes, create quizzes, etc. Then there's the actual managing and presenting of content tools. So that's how you actually get the files in there, how you organize your files, how you structure your pages, etc. And then finally, the one that I'm in charge of, which is the creating and the managing of the assignments, which is the one what we're going to be talking about today. And what we're going to be doing on that course, for example, is taking you through all the steps of actually creating an assignment, managing the actual grade, managing the submissions, the Turnitin submissions, and how you actually go about marking it. The structure of these courses is a bit different to how we've run them in the past. It won't be a 2-hour session of you just sat there. It'll be 2 hours where we're actually going to be going through a bit of a presentation, a workshop, and then we've got a series of activities for you to do at your own pace. And these are also going to be developed as online materials as well. So we're going to try and develop a system by which you can come along, have a drop-in, discuss things with us, as well as coming to a structured course. So I just thought you might like to know that we're not just rolling out Canvas and letting you try to actually get your head around it on your own. We are actually going to do our best to support you and the colleges as well. And likewise, we can actually run these dedicated sessions in colleges if people actually are wanting them. Okay, so that's a very quick overview of the training. Is everybody okay with that? I can go on to the actual nuts and bolts. Out of curiosity, how many of you actually have seen Canvas already? So over half of you. Over half of you. Okay. This is a Canvas course, and one of the things that I'll be mentioning is Canvas courses. In the past, we've had WebCT sections. You don't have sections as such in Canvas. You have Canvas courses. So when I make reference to a course, it is whatever the actual element that we're actually using. So what I'm going to do is go through how you actually create an assignment in Canvas. You've got the menu down the left-hand side. Click on the assignment tool, and you're immediately presented with those assignments that have already been created. So there's a couple there ready. You've got the submission dates and the actual scores. So I'm going to click on the add the assignment, assignment 3, and what I wanted to leave it as that, and I'm going to go to the more options, because that's where you actually begin to see what's possible. You've got a text, so I'm just going to change this so I can see it a bit better. You've got a text box there, a rich content editor as they call it, and here you can actually add any text you like. So you can format that as you wish, and this is where it's actually potentially incredibly useful. You can link that back to other resources. So if you've already preloaded images in, I can go into the tab and I can bring in an image. So I'll click on that, and it brings in an image. Now I've already loaded that image into Canvas, but you also have the ability to look for Creative Commons licenses images, or you can, as you said, put images in that you bring in as and when necessary. You can rescale it, you can change the formatting of it, etc. So it's all really exciting stuff, isn't it? Yeah, I got 2 nodding heads. That's good. That's more than I was expecting. All right. So that's the basic creation of the text. I can allocate how many points I want to give for this assessment. I can also then go into the more options. So this is the kind of important part. And this is where it's different to systems that we've used in the past. I'm going to have an online submission, and immediately there you can see that it gives you the option to have different types of submissions. So you can have website submissions. So if a student's gone away and actually designed a website, they can actually submit that as part of an assignment. You can have a student uploading multimedia recordings. So if they've done an MP3 or if they've done a video presentation or anything along those lines, they can actually submit that. Today what we're going to do is we're going to do a very simple file upload. I can enable it to also be Turnitin submissions. So this is important for those of you who are actually concerned about Turnitin. If you go on to the additional features, I can then specify the normal sort of Turnitin parameters, the sort of like the comparisons, etc. There are a few differences about how we actually are using Turnitin and how the integration works, but in general it's about 80% there as to what we've had in the past. I'll just close that now. I'm not going to enable it now because we're presently testing the system. So I'm just going to click that off. So due dates, specify the due date. So date's the 22nd today, so I'll set it for Friday. Then I won't worry about setting a time. I can move across. I'm going to make it available, or I'll make it available from the beginning of this week, say. Done. And I'm only going to have it available until Friday, or let's say Saturday morning. So once that happens, the students can no longer submit to that assignment. So you can actually have a due date and a cut-off period as well. All right, so.
Do you know, say someone submits a file after the due date, before the closes, can you see?
Yes. The question was, for those of you who didn't hear it, was whether or not you can actually see it. When we go into the actual management of it after John submitted something, I can actually show you what you actually see when you grade it and when you have the different submissions. Because one of the things is that it does actually give you, unlike an audit, history of when it was being submitted, and if it's been submitted late, you can actually see that. You can also see if a student may have submitted early on and then resubmitted. You can actually go to the previous one, look at the previous one, and subsequent one as well. So there's actually that ability. And I've chosen here file uploads. You could have it that a student might upload multiple files for an assignment. So you could have a PowerPoint presentation and a written report, and they can submit both of those, and you can mark both of them online or download them to mark offline. Okay? All of which is... Sorry, go on, John.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
No, you're not.
Peer reviews, how does that work?
It's a bit of a grey area at present, purely because it's one of the things that I'm trying to work out how the peer review works compared to the peer review in the Turnitin. There is a difference. You can set it up so that people can review one another's work. So you can come back to me on that. One of the things with Canvas is that it's got a very fluid rollout system of upgrades. So since we've actually been looking at it and testing it since January, myself and the rest of the team, the assignment tool has actually changed twice. The Turnitin integration has changed twice. to basically give you additional functionality. It didn't have this until date up until 6 weeks ago, and then that came in. So it's constantly progressing. So it's not like WebCT where it's been a case of this is what you've got and you're stuck with it for 12 months. This is constantly evolving, it's constantly developing. And we actually have got the opportunity to feed in to Canvas what we actually want to see. We can raise what's called tickets with their system. Okay? So that is the basics of how you create an assignment. If I do an update now, he says, it's worked, sorry. This machine was being very painfully slow this morning when we were trying to get it to work. So that is now there. That is now available to the students so they can actually start submitting, and that's effectively the summary page for ourselves. If I choose to, I can add a rubric, which is something I'll come to in a minute, but I want to let John basically answer any questions, then John's going to basically do a dummy submission to this, and then we can actually work through the process. So how does that look to you? You got any questions about it? You can set grading criteria in it, but that points title is set. It's hard-coded into the actual Canvas. But you can set grading criteria within there, and you can, so there is a degree of flexibility. Anybody else?
You said about multiple file at the moment, and perhaps if someone submitted and resubmitted, can you restrict it so they can only submit once?
Not at present. It's one of the actual tickets that's in at present is to have a specification that they can only submit once. Partly that's coming across because of the whole Turnitin aspect, whereby if a student submits once and then resubmits, then there's complications. So that is something they are actually looking at present. Anybody else? Right, I'll hand you over to John.
Well, can I just suggest that we build the rubric before I...
Oh, okay. Right, so we've got the ability to add a rubric in here, so I'll just say, right, I can add whatever description I like by quite literally, I'll just create that, so I'll just call it a rubric. So I've created a rubric called rubric, which wasn't very creative really, but I've never been that creative really. If I then choose to edit that, what I can actually do is say, let's say in the first criteria, let's call it presentation. And I can say, right, well actually I want to add a range in there. So I'll say 3 points for a medium level qualification, or I can say 0 points if I don't think it's particularly that good. I can add another criteria in here, so discussion, and I might say I just want to actually have just 2 criteria or 2 ratings in that. I want to have 5 and 0. Yes, but I can change that as I want. I can edit these as much as I want. So I might want to say, well, actually, I can change that and say full mark. Okay, so I can add as many criteria as I like, as well as many ratings, up to 10 criteria. I've tested it to 14, and it still works quite effectively. So you click there, you see the double arrow, yeah? It opens it, expands it up, and it defaults to put whatever the mid is between those other 2. Sorry, I didn't see it. You can get... No, you can increase that as many as you like. I've had it up to 10. It's just defaulting to 5 at present. You can also get... I've done it up to 14 criteria down the side. So it depends on how analytical you actually want to be about the actual the grading rubric. One thing I will say is if you do start using rubrics, if you do start editing them, be very careful that you make sure you update it at the bottom, because I've literally gone through and created this wonderful rubric, gone brilliant, clicked on something which I thought was up saving it, and it didn't because I'd forgotten to click on the update at the bottom. So that's now updated. So you've got the ability to make it as dynamic as you wish.
I've got a question. Once you've set your rubrics and the assessment becomes live, take it you can't change it.
You can't change the rubric once the assessment live and work has been submitted. I think you can still edit the rubric up until the point of there being submissions to it. Yes, but I'd have to check that. Did everybody hear what the question was? It was basically asking about. Right, sorry.
With the rubric, obviously, with the people marking it will have access to see those rating descriptions. Is that also available for students to see?
Yeah, you've got the ability for the students to actually see the rubrics.
Before they get the mark, or just after?
Sure, you can take it before, yeah.
Do you need to tick the middle box? Use the rubric for assignment grading
Yeah.
as a default.
So that will be if you wanted to use it for grading of the assignment. You don't have to use it for grading, which is the closest way of getting around the sort of giving a qualitative rubric rather than a marking rubric. Do you see what I mean?
Unless you tick that box, you'll provide the rubric to student guidance. If you tick that box, you'll then also use it.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions? It's quite a bit more dynamic, and it's literally a case of it's a very quick presentation. If anybody comes to the actual sessions that we're planning on running, you get hands-on and you'll actually be able to actually see a few.
How do you, are you going to come on to releasing marks and things like
Yes. Yeah. We'll cover that in the sort of the managing of the submissions and stuff like that. But as I said, we're trying to keep this as a brief overview. You're probably going to leave here with more questions. And what John and I were discussing was actually setting up a course site so you actually can go in and have a look. But if anybody's got any questions, drop them to John or myself.
So does it not give you an error message when your rubric doesn't add up to 100?
No. Because it doesn't have to add up to 100. You might be only using the rubric for a part of the actual marking process. Okay.
Oh, so is that the case then? So you've got total points in your rubric is 10.
Yeah.
The points for the whole assignment is
100. There's not a.
But still only give you 10 marks if you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, John, do you want to do a submission? You're up. I'll pass you this. I'll go and sit and ask you questions then.
So a lot of this is quite new to both of us, so we're still sort of asking the same questions and trying to figure out how it works. Right, okay, so I think my role now is to be a student, isn't it? Yes, that's what we agreed. So I'm going to go into this course, which is Managing Assignments, and this is the one that I only have student access to. So it does look rather different to the one that Rob has been showing you. And what you'll see down the right-hand side are a series of assignments that I've got available for me, and one of which is this Turn-In Assignment 3. It was called Assignment 3, wasn't it? It's added Turn-In as a sort of American kind of thing to remind me to turn it in, which is going to be very confusing there. Okay. I'm trying to think of any other place where it would show it, perhaps in the syllabus. There we go. Yep. So we've got it there in the syllabus. We've got it in the assignments list here, upcoming assignments. So it's got the deadline as well. I'll do that later. If I get my desk. In theory, I'm thinking we should have a notification. There we go. Assignment 3. So there's a variety of different places just to sort of alert me as a student to the fact that these are coming through.
The dashboard as well when you first log in.
Is it in the calendar?
Yes, on the dashboard.
Is it in the calendar as well?
Yep, keep shouting out. It's very well rehearsed, this one. There you go. See, this is the thing, you've got to come up with all the answers. That I'll just keep knocking them up. Right, so which one are we? Where are 25th. So it's due. So we did set the deadline as the Friday, which is interesting. The due was at the last final date, the end date, was the 25th.
Yeah, it was.
It's interesting. It was. Yep. Okay.
You see there, though, you actually got a view of all the calendars that John is involved on.
Yeah, I was just about
And
to.
you can hide
Oh.
various ones
Oh, that was-
that you want to submit to. So it's a dynamic way of basically students knowing what's going on.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. Right, so if I go back to this one, actually no, there's a variety of different ways of going to it. I can edit.
It's saying the due date is May 25th, 6:59, which is very strange.
Good point.
Default set. It hasn't been set to American time.
Yes, it is set on American times, but this test server is on the American server. This
So
is
that's
one-
why it's 25th.
and this,
That's interesting, isn't it?
this is also why we're having an issue with rollout, because we're waiting for the European institution to come online, which is why you've not had a chance to actually get on it. This is the sandbox, this is the test bed that we're trying our best to break for the last 3 months or more. And we're getting there, sorry, we will break it through.
So eventually there'll be a GMT or EST.
That's so Eastern Standard Time, 5 hours, so that's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
This is Utah time, isn't it?
Yes.
No reason.
I don't know.
Which is Salt Lake City's there, so it's 7 hours. Which is about midnight.
It's an arbitrary time, isn't
Yes,
it?
basically
It's an arbitrary
because
time
it's set to
that they've added in.
They're behind us.
Yes, well, the EA stuff. That's right, that's a bit of
Okay. So now I've clicked into our assignment. So there was a variety of different routes as we identified into this. And I would have also been notified through whichever channel I'd requested. So as we saw a few weeks ago, I don't know if people have seen the notification options. Do you want me to quickly show you those? Might be a little confusing just because, as we noted before, there's a variety of different ways we can be communicated to through Canvas. And because I'm an instructor and a student on different courses, I see different options on here. A student would see a much more cut-down version of the only ways that they can be communicated. Just to sort of orientate you just down here, there's a variety of different things that can be you can be alerted to. All of these, and I'm sure there's more we can activate as well. And for the different ways that we've selected to allow you to be communicated, and the ones you've chosen yourself, sounds very odd, but we can open up Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and then students themselves can say, yes, I would like to be communicated by Twitter or LinkedIn. And they can say then, it will then show itself on these extra channels as well as their email address. And you can then select as a student or as a staff member the way that you want to be communicated. So you have 3 options, maybe 4, not to be communicated at all. 1 is as soon as possible. You're not allowed to do not be communicated at all. So as soon as possible, daily and weekly. So you can get the digest that you probably see through other social media that you love coming through to you, but the students can get these. So as soon as possible makes sense for things like assignments in this case. So if something gets published, they can get the alert coming through. So in terms of the deadlines, the students would be notified about when the assignment is due, and it will come through to them as a specific email or Facebook message. Okay, so going into the assignment itself, we see the details that are in here, and we see the rubric at the bottom. So the students get the instructions that we would naturally give to them, the deadline, and how we are choosing to assess this particular piece of assignment. And then up here, I didn't see that at first actually, we get to choose to submit our document. So we have a file upload, or very trendily, a Google Doc. I shouldn't have clicked on that, but oh, there we go. You can see my Google Docs. That's clever. Dropbox would be nice as well. So now we can just open this and pick a fantastic document from here. And then submit it. There we go. Okay. Turned in. We've been turned in.
When we first started looking at that, we kept misreading that.
Yeah, it's too easy, isn't it? Okay. But we can see this is obviously very nice compared to our WebCT submissions, and it shows you the submission details, so the fact you've submitted it, shows you the document, the date and time. I presume it will send you an email, will it, Rob?
Sorry.
Will it send the student an email to confirmation?
No.
Ooh.
They won't get
Okay.
notification, they won't get an email if you get notification that they've submitted.
Okay, yeah. And then the ability to resubmit if you wish to.
If you choose to resubmit, though, it actually, whilst it keeps a record for the tutor to be able to see the previous submission, the actual submission that's made will wipe the previous submission. So if you have a situation where a student submitted a PowerPoint and a Word file, and you realise they've only submitted one, not the other, if they go in, they then have to submit both of those documents again. Because effectively what happens is it presumes that the latest submission is the one that
So if there's two documents to be submitted, like a PowerPoint and a Word,
Yeah.
from that drop-down list of documents, do they have to select both at the same
No,
time?
if John say click on resubmit.
Yeah, there's an option to do multiple documents.
What you can do is
Add
add
another.
another file.
Yeah.
So what you would do is John would choose the Word document and then add another file.
That's like as a batch, not a cumulative batch.
So
You submit as a batch.
theoretically you can. It's not advisable because what happens, one of the things we're going to show you, is that when you download it, it creates a zip file, and it gets somewhat confusing and complicated because it renames each of the submissions that go in. When you come to actually download them, it renames them with the student's name, student's ID number, and then file name on the end. Yes, so I was going to show you.
Okay, whilst you were talking, I've just resubmitted by adding another document, but also pulling out the one that I had already submitted, and they're both showing themselves here. So now Rob will talk about the more interesting aspects of this.
Does anybody have any questions about the submission process?
You select a notification by email, or email you that you've submitted.
We were looking for this before in terms of some of the options that are just student-specific. I couldn't find anything myself, but I'll be looking into that because I think it would be quite good just to get an email confirmation.
But the thing being is the students will always see what they've submitted when they follow the assignment.
But they won't have a receipt.
No, they won't, as in like an email notification, no. They'll have a they won't have an email that we found, but if they go into this, they would be able to do a screen print of that to show the submission.
That's a bit harder to be able to prove that they've submitted, other than me going in and finding their assignment. Sometimes they say they've submitted and we can't find it, which means they haven't submitted.
Right, okay, let me show you something then.
There may also be, as a digest for the instructor, for the teacher, a summary of who submitted.
Well,
Yeah, but if they say they've submitted,
Yeah.
and for some reason it's not in there, they need to be able to prove to me that they've submitted
right,
or not.
okay. Can I just show you then how the managing of it works? Yep. So, what I'm going to do now is just take you through a couple of ways of actually managing it. And this is one of the things you need to be aware of. Again, terminology is slightly different with Canvas. We have the assignments. So this is, I'm taking you back to the assignments page. And that's showing me all the assignments. Assignment 3, which is the one that we set up just now. And you can see there, I can now download submissions, or I can go to the speed grader. Now the downloading gives you an option to mark offline. Yes? The speed grader is online. Okay? So when I come to marking and actually doing your actual, showing you how you actually can mark something, well, that's what we're going to be doing. But first off, it might answer some of the questions that we've already had. I'm going to click on grades. Right, and now in grades, you will see a listing of who has and who hasn't submitted. Because there, you will see, and you move over it, this is the old grade book, and this is one of the functions that is actually really beneficial in Canvas, is you've got old views and new views. So when they do show you something new, or they do put an upgrade in, they actually give you an ability to look at like at the old grade book or the new grade book to see which one that you prefer. So this is showing you the old one. I'm going to show you the new one as well. But here, this goes back to your question about whether you can actually see if a submission has been received. You'll see there that our file has been uploaded by John to assignment 3. If I was to go into the new gradebook, this is one of the things that they launched in the last few months. It's a little bit more dynamic. It's got nice little cute photographs of people if they've actually got profile images showing. You can still see that the information that there has been a submission. If I hover over it, I should be able to. Somebody was asking about late submissions. Here, you could tell you that this was sent to Turnitin. This was a text entry. It wasn't an upload. This one was a file upload submission, and it was sent to Turnitin. If it was late, it would state there by just moving your mouse over that it was a late submission as well.
Is there anything, assuming you've got a class of 400 students, you've got all of those wondering, can you export it to Excel so you can do some sort of team lookup to find out who has not submitted on time?
You can,
For us, that's going to be the thing.
but I wouldn't do it, because what you can actually do is on the assignment option, you can actually bring this up and you can message students directly, yeah? Who? No.
For us to know who was late. In our list of 400.
You reduce marks by 5% for a day late.
Well, yeah, but I was trying to show you the way that you could communicate if you wanted to. You can export out, yes, you can download as a CSV the data and you can upload it up. Likewise, you can hide assignments if you wanted to anonymize that information. Well, what I was trying to show you was the ability that some people have already said is incredibly useful, is the ability to actually message the students who haven't submitted, or you can message students who have only reached a certain grade. Yeah?
Can you do that? Can you auto set that to do it 2 days before assignment day?
No, you can trigger an announcement by going in and creating an announcement to them to remind them this is due. But there isn't like a time release or such, or a selective release options. That they've deliberately avoided it because they've tended to make individual elements.
If you download the Excel, you will have a marker that it was late.
If you did download the CSV file, you'll just be getting the grade, so you'll know who has or who hasn't submitted. Yeah?
So you're getting grades because you haven't graded.
Yeah, but this is the... I'll tell you what, let's do one. Let's be quicker. So if I open that, will this open? So this is the one I've just done, right? You've got possible number of points and you've got no entry in there, yes? So it's not being graded, yes? It doesn't show who has and hasn't submitted because of the fact that nothing's been graded, if that makes sense.
Well, we want to know who's submitted.
We want to know,
Yeah.
of those people you graded, who submitted after the deadline.
There's not a function short of...
You know when you go to that message students,
Let me go back into that.
where it says message students who haven't submitted yet, what
Yeah.
happens if you click on that? Oh, it shows you a list.
Yeah, it shows you the list of the people. No, not that I've found. What it presumes to do is for you to communicate with those who haven't submitted. What you're asking for is identify...
It's penalising them for lateness.
Yeah.
Because the rules. So
They need to be flagged on that system somehow.
Okay, well, the best bet is to take a note of that, let us know, and let's see if we can actually take that to Canvas to see if in the export they can tweak it so that there is some kind of flag that denotes when something's come in late. Yeah? Because this is it. These are features. What I was trying to explain earlier is the fact that Canvas works on the principle of people saying, well, that's great, but can it do this? Can you put something in? Which is why it tries to do this very quick turnaround, which is why it's got the old gradebook and the new gradebook showing. That's why the assignments tool's already changed a couple of times.
Can I
Yeah?
ask you about that CSV file again?
Yeah.
Did it have a date of submission on there?
No. All it does is it identifies an export from the gradebook of any grades that have been put into there. So it doesn't show you, for example, a Turnitin grade download. It gives you just the person and what they've completed. It's different to what you have had in the past.
How does it communicate with Birms?
It doesn't.
We have to upload into Birms from...
Yeah. At present, it does not. It's one of the things that the university is looking at, is the whole integration maps that is taking place. Sorry.
I'd suggest that one workaround might be to actually set, you know, if you have assignment 3 for everyone who submits on time, you know, assignment 3A, which has a maximum mark of 90, which opens the day after and goes for a day, etc.
Mm-hmm. But as I said, if you are wanting features, if you're wanting these additional features, then feed them to us, and then we will feed them. We have regular conversations, and we have a regular conference call with them. So if you're wanting to have features, if you think this would work or this would work really well, then let us know.
Who do we tell?
Us, as in me. I'll pass them on to John, and then and John can pass them on to myself. Yeah, email John. That's a good one. So you have got some functionality there. You know, I think where you go, there's nothing out there that will do everything that we want. Sadly.
Let's say you've got your 400 students there, you've got your assignment 3 and 380 have submitted and 20 left. Can you select the order in which those people are displayed on the screen?
You can.
By submission deadline, for example.
So basically sort it by who's. You can sort it by who has and who hasn't submitted by just very crudely selecting it, but no. The only time that you see when they've submitted is in SpeedGrader. If I go into that, it's probably give you an idea. I've gone into the assignment tool now, and I was going to go on to actually how you go about marking it. You have a download facility. So if I click on download, what happens is it puts all the submissions that you have had into a zip file. Right? So that's the zip file, and I should be able to download it. I'll save it onto the desktop. Brilliant, it's actually opened it. Right, so this is the submission. John has done 2 submissions. Okay? So there you have his name. There's an identifier for the course and for the student, if my memory serves correctly. And then there is the title of the actual submission. There isn't any other data other than the date modifier, and that would be the actual date that the zip file is being created. Okay, so this is what I've downloaded. Yes, I've downloaded this. I can save this into my machine. If I was to open it and then annotate it with add comments or track changes, however you wanted to, and save it as the same file name, you can then drop it into the same zip file, upload it into Canvas, and those comments go in. Those comments are then visible to the student, so they can actually go in and then see that feedback, and they'll get a notification that you've uploaded something to them, which is why you've got to keep the file name the same, because that's the identifier. That's identifying which course, which assignment it's actually going to.
So if you've got a number of assessors and the work is going to be divided up between those people, each of those assessors downloads a zip file, annotates the files that they're marking, and then they all open back up. Won't they overwrite each other's comments?
Yeah, we've identified that as an issue, because the problem you've got is you've got to work out who's going to be marking which ones almost. Because when you do upload, when we first tested it looked like only the first ones were visible, and then it looked as though that subsequent ones were visible. What does happen is each time that the zip file is uploaded, a student gets a notification saying that there has been some feedback coming. So theoretically what you could do, and this is one of the things that we've been testing, is if you go into the zip file and take out, and let's say you've got 4 people that are marking, What you could do, and this is, as I said, this is one of the things that we're testing, is that you could create 4 zip files and then delete out of those zip files those that you are not marking, so that when you're uploading, you're only uploading to those individual students.
Can't you host the zip file on a shared drive and all access the files from there?
You can, but then you need to have a shared drive, and you need to be able to always be able to access that shared drive. So that's what you could do, is rather than keeping it in the zip file, is keeping it in a folder on the shared drive, edit those, and then save them all as one zip file back in. Yeah. But again, this is a download marking option. Yeah. There's also an online marking option, which I'm about to get to. Okay. Right. Let's move on. Let me just close that. So you've seen a download option, and you can now see that because I've downloaded it, there's an option to re-upload. But I was going to show you SpeedGrader, because SpeedGrader is an online marking option. So here you have the document that's been submitted by the student in question. You can select which student you want to move through. You can see up here how many times that student has submitted. So if I went back to an earlier version, and this is not the most recent, you can see that they only submitted 1 document at that time. If I choose to click on the different documents, I can see the PowerPoint file that's been submitted, and I can add comments in here if I want to. I can draw over it, add text comments in there as and when needed. I can also, if I want to, I can also add a multimedia feedback. So if I've got a webcam, or if I want to do an audio feedback to the students, I can actually choose to do that if you'd rather. And then that becomes what's classified here as discussion. And then once that discussion starts, a notification goes through, and if you remember John was showing you the inbox, notification goes through to the student saying that they've actually received a message. They can either view it there, or they can actually come back to their equivalent view of the SpeedGrader and see the comments there. They might add another comment, and you can actually build a discussion. It's particularly useful for distance learners or small cohorts of students. Obviously, there is issues if you've got 400 students and a large proportion of them start using the comments tool. So that might be where you actually turn to the students and say, well, we're not using that facility. Sorry.
Once you see the SpeedGrader, it's great quality feedback on assignments that don't necessarily need to count. So, for example, if you're M group size things, you can imagine facilitating groups and columns based on work that students are. It's around then dividing students up into same groups with the same assignment, but different upload methods, so that only SpeedGrader ones that are necessary.
Yeah, one of the things that we've identified at present is that up here, where you see the cohort of students, we've not got a method of sorting them. Whilst in WebCT you used to be able to sort of use the gradebook to do a sort, you could put there isn't one in the SpeedGrader, so the problem you end up having is if you've got 400, you've got 400 in that list that you have to scroll through. Again, this is one of the things that, though there are groups tools within Canvas, they're very different to how groups have worked in WebCT. You can create assignments that are for specific groups, but that is done by creating what's called a Canvas section, and you enroll those students onto that section. It is something that I've looked at, Trevor's looked at, I think you've looked at as well, haven't you? And it becomes quite logistically complicated, because when you have a group of students in one section for an assignment, fine, but there's default sections hidden in Canvas, so that when you go in, everybody who's enrolled in a Canvas course is immediately enrolled on section 1 of the Canvas course. If you take them out of that, then they might find other elements of the Canvas course are then become hidden to them. And that can actually happen for a member of staff as well. So you could end up creating a section and then finding that you can't actually access the course. Yeah, it's a very strange structure. We're not convinced by it yet. It's got its uses. So,
Just show the rubric.
oh yeah, you can actually, bring up the rubric as well and use that here to actually mark and create comments and create details, and then you can actually see where you've marked it in the past. If I drag that across, it's probably easier.
So when you were initially setting up the rubric, there was a tick box whether you were linking it to the assessment.
That's right.
So if that was linked,
You'd have got the grade would have appeared.
in the grade box.
Yeah, and if memory correct, you can still overwrite that if you wanted to.
Sure.
And the grade, if I put a grade in there now, say that then would be written to the grade book. Yeah, so and there's also some of the settings that you see in the grade book. So again, if I want to, I can actually hide the students' names if there is a cohort and you're wanting to mark anonymously. You can actually hide it, and then all it does is it shows you as student 1, and you can see that, well, actually I've graded student 1, I can then move on to student 2. They've not submitted yet.
If you're marking online, what happens when you click the rubric button?
If you're marking online, the rubric, if John goes into it, you'll actually see the rubric results from a student. Is that,
Sorry, when you click about view rubric button, what happens?
it brings that up, and then you can actually see what you've marked, or what, because I've just allocated marks to this, it actually shows you what you've actually allocated them to.
Rob, presumably you can't add generic comments, can you?
You can add comments into the add comments. What do you mean in the rubric?
Yeah, I mean generic ones, you can do it in grade mark. I think Turnitin's grade mark. So you can set a list of generic comments so you can kind of associate them with...
If memory serves me right, there's actually, I think there actually is a feature in the rubric to allow open comments in. Or alternatively, what you could do is add a comment in here, or if you've produced a Word document that is associated with that, you can just you can attach, because you've got an attach option here.
You've given student 8 out of 10 in the rubric, and that doesn't appear in the grade.
No, that's
Grading staff, was it?
that's because when I was creating the rubric, I didn't tick the box to say
But if you had, it would have just
it would
put
have.
that
Yeah,
number in the box.
that's right.
Just now, you went to the settings tool and
Yeah.
gave them options for how to display the students. Is there one for submission deadline?
They submitted, yes, but that's you can't.
So you can quickly find out
Yeah,
what-
but you can't export that information, which is going back to the CSV file. You don't have that.
So you won't see who's not on there either, will you? And you see who's on there.
But yes, you're right, if they haven't submitted,
Yeah.
you'll be able to see it.
If I do that,
Especially about the muting.
Yes. Yeah.
so it's not going to work particularly well because we've only got the one submission. But anyway, so that is an online option for marking.
Muting.
Sorry, muting. There's a thing called muting assignments, which I didn't do on this assignment. And basically what happens is you mute the assignment so that any comments you're adding aren't visible to the student. And then effectively what happens is when it's actually get to the deadline, you go in there and unmute it. It basically means if you're taking, if it takes quite a while to mark 400 scripts, you can actually mute it, and it means that nobody sees them until such time as you actually want it to be visible.
So you could do that if you had different markers in.
Yeah, you could until such time as everybody has marked. Yeah.
So there isn't a function where you can set a date at which point all results are released. The same as you had submission dates, due dates,
No.
post dates, you could have a release date.
Yeah, it's one of the things that they were looking at, and if you read on the forums, it's actually one of the things they're actually talking about putting in sort of a release of grades mark for that column, so that it sort of gets away from this muting. If this was a Turnitin, by the way, you'd actually have a little extra line in here which would show what the percentage originality score was, and if you wanted to go into Turnitin, you click on that. I didn't initiate Turnitin on this deliberately because we're still waiting for the integration to work fully.
not going to do the turn comes back into this.
No. No. There is not presently a Turnitin integration from Canvas which exports the grade in Turnitin to Canvas. Yeah. For those of you who are familiar with Turnitin and WebCT, you'll know that quite often the connection is being broken between Turnitin and WebCT at present, where that grade passing is taking place. What they're trying to do is they're looking at the possibility of, with the next Turnitin integration, to actually have that grade coming across. But because it's got its own inbuilt rubric and its own grading thing, you have almost a conflict instantly, because you can have if you put a grade in Turnitin, would that override something if they've already marked it here in using the grades, or in using the rubric tool? So there's a few discussions taking place as to what potentially. Right. Sorry.
I was just going to jump in right at the end and just show what the student would then finally see in terms of the results coming out. So if we just refresh that page, we should see the whole sweep then.
I'll see my grade there.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got this here. I think if we click here, we've got the grade showing through now, and the evaluation. So, I mean, Rob didn't enter any comments. I think if comments were entered, they'd also be shown in here as a sort of your feedback. But you get a little bit of a breakdown of what you've done against the files that you've submitted. You've also got a little marker down here to say that there's some new grades showing under here. And this is displayed here. So this gives you a summary. And it's got a drop down here of all of your courses. So this could be all of your modules or all of your years. If you're, well, I was going to say if you're a teacher, it would be slightly different. But we're just looking here as a student. It's flagging here the new one that's been released. It's got the score. It's got what it's out of. And we've got the rubric results. We've got the comment. Oh, that was my comment, sorry. But it's got a summary score there. If we click on this. Oh, sorry, we just go back to that.
John, just go on that screen for a second.
Oh.
All right, we'll sit on that screen for a second.
Go back.
On the right-hand side, you see there's actually, what I was trying to explain is you've got the ability for the student to actually add a comment if they want to have a discussion. It's something that distance learners could potentially find very beneficial. However, we've got concerns about managing the expectations of the students if they start clicking there, because there's a box there. They're very tempted to say, well, why did I only get XXX?
And so your point before, Rob, was that any comments like that are going to an instructor would go into the inbox, which is, for anybody who's ever used anything like Google+, is very much sort of a person-centred discussion forum. So you kind of, if that makes sense. So you see the people you're having a conversation with down here, and you click on any of these, and it would then show you the sort of the private conversation that's going on in here as separate little boxes, separate threads.
So you could have 400 medical students saying, I don't agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, be careful. Yeah.
That's why managing the expectations of basically turning to the student saying, you're not accepting comments along those lines, and you'll address
But
them.
you've got to then manually filter them out, haven't you?
If they send them to you, unfortunately, yeah.
You have to disable that comment block.
We can't disable it. You can't disable it on the assignment tool either. It's one of those things where Canvas works on the principle of very open communication and the ability to fire off comments straight away.
I think you should flash up a warning, please consider sending. We consider sending this, wait 24 hours. You really need to have
It's one of the things that we've been looking at, is whether we can put some kind of restriction or some kind of notification, because we are concerned with courses like the MCHB where you have a couple hundred, 400 or so students. We know that there will be a relatively small percentage of students that are likely to actually question a submission. if they've automatically got a box there that's available to them, then well, they're all brought up in the texting age, so they will just fire one off very, very quickly. Which is why one of the things that we are saying, certainly I'm covering on the science course and also Jill's covering on the communications course, is the whole aspect of actually telling the student that if they are going to be wanting feedback, then maybe wait until the actual lecture comes around rather than immediately time the class. It isn't perfect.
Sorry, Rob, just continue.
Whoever's actually put the original comment on, so if, for example, in this example, John's the student and I'm the member of staff, the comment that John has put on would actually go into the speed grader and I would get a notification about.
If we've got lots of academics on the same course, every single academic will get that message.
It should be the person who's actually marked and added the comment initially.
Can we test that?
Yeah, I'll just more test on that. But when we look at it in the past, unless the person, or unless they've been commenting in the past, say, one academic has downloaded and uploaded some feedback, and another academic has added a comment, then both of them will get it. But it should just be the person who initiated the mark. Right. I don't mind, I'll spend some more time on it.
So it wouldn't, there was a generic line that was forward go to Miriam.
Can I, it's too big a question, we wouldn't go in depth, but I mean, how have you found setting MCQs and automatically marked?
MCQs.
Because the 380 is a good idea.
Well, yeah, they're actually pretty good. The difference to how they're running WebCT and some of the question formats is slightly different. That includes just basic MCQs. The ability for you to add feedback in, the ability for you to add individual feedback for each question is actually quite good. The ability, because you've got that rich content